This is part one of my series on the five clairs, the five senses that are often the way that spirit communicates with mediums. And I'm not going to go into a description of what the clairs are. More, I'm going to explain the way it emerged for me and some of the signs that you can use to be able to tell if it is happening for you. The first part of the series today is going to explore the topic of clairaudience. Clairaudience is also known as clair hearing or clear hearing. And the way it works is mediums will either hear words or phrases out loud, they'll hear them physically, or they will hear them in their third eye. So they'll hear a name, they'll hear a phrase in their own mind, and it will contain information for the sitter that they are giving a reading to. So, how does it begin? Often it starts when you are falling asleep. You may hear your name being called, or you may hear a distinct phrase or another person's name. But often in the very beginning, it starts with the sound of your own name being either sharply whispered or just spoken in your ear. And it can often begin in that moment right before you fall asleep, which is why science will often say it's an hallucination and that it's just your internal mind creating the sound of a memory of your name being called because that's the thing that you hear the most in your life. I don't think that's true. I believe that it is spirit finding a moment in your day where you are most open and communicating with you that way, expanding your ability, if you will, in those moments when you are most open because your thinking mind is not getting in the way of communication with spirit. And so if you start to pay attention and you start to notice that happening and even start to develop it by finding time to meditate and sitting in silence so that you find more openness throughout your day to receive this information, then different kinds of sounds will begin to come through for you. You may start hearing fuller sentences rather than just a name. You may start hearing music. You may start hearing laughter or even crying. And that can sound scary to some people, but to me, it's not scary. It's just a part of the communication process. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's suffering happening, although crying often does mean suffering, but it could be a way of communicating a certain state of being rather than trying to be a frightening kind of moment in time, you know? So for me, it definitely started with the hypnagogic experience of hearing my own name being called. And then it kind of progressed, and I don't really remember time-wise how it happened or how long it took, but it progressed, I think, relatively quickly, like within a few months, to hearing different names, hearing phrases while I was lying in bed, not always about to fall asleep either, just awake in bed. And then in my meditation practice, it did start to come through more clear information. And in fact, it started to become connected to my third eye ability to see things as well. I would see images and even sometimes almost like strange movies that told the story of an energy that was making itself known to me, along with a phrase. For instance, once when I was meditating, I was completely and totally in that state of presence that we can sometimes find in meditation. And suddenly I saw that there was a really large man standing in front of me in my third eye, but this was very close to being 3D. And he was dressed in some kind of army uniform, but not green. It was tan. It was like some kind of tan uniform. And I just could tell from what I knew to be true and also from the way he was talking to me, I was a trainee and he was yelling at me in this vision that I had. Yelling, and I forget the exact phrase he said, but he said a very specific phrase that was a threat to me because I guess I wasn't towing the line. And then he moved and he sat down next to me. And as that happened, there was this incredible whirring sound that came into my ear, which often would happen when this kind of information came through for me, this kind of whooshing sound in my ear. And then it was over, and I came out of the meditation and I wrote it down so that I could always have it. So I should look for it so I can tell you what that phrase was. But again, for me and for most people, it just progresses, but it only progresses with awareness. So if you have noticed that you hear your name being called in strange moments, rather than being scared or ignoring it or explaining it away, try instead to just note it and to track it and to start meditating and even perhaps start practicing in psychic medium practice circles, which I host one on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. EST on Meetup. And I offer the link in the comment section. And when you start practicing and noting this ability, it will start to expand for you. So if you're interested in learning more about your abilities in this way, join my practice circle, start meditating, and start writing down your experiences. And I promise you it will begin to expand. Tomorrow's video will be on claircognizance, which is the sense of knowing that comes through for spirit, which is also a very strong one that I have and have always had. So we will talk more about that tomorrow. And if you like this video, please like it and subscribe because it really helps me a lot. Thank you.